Señores delegados, favor tomar asiento en sala.
Distinguished delegates, please take your seats. We are about to begin.
El Salvador.
Control de quórum, por favor.
Can we please check whether there's a quorum?
Favor tomar asiento.
Distinguished delegates, please take your seats. We are checking for a quorum.
Chequeo de transmisión por YouTube y por Zoom. ¿Estamos bien?
Is everything working on YouTube and Zoom?
Delegaciones a tomar su asiento. Vamos
I'd like to ask the delegations to take their seats. We will now begin today's session.
primero algunos anuncios.
Just a few announcements first. Interpretation is available in Spanish, English, French, and Portuguese.
Y también en Zoom.
You can find headphones by the entrance to the room and for virtual participants on Zoom.
On the transmission devices delivered at the entrance to the plenary room, and also on Zoom for virtual participants. Para aquellos que participan de manera virtual, me permito
For
recomendar
those of you joining us remotely,
el uso de la palabra
please allow me to remind you that you should switch on your video when you take the floor. Speak into the microphone slowly, please. Please use an external microphone rather than one that's incorporated in your computer. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking.
tiene previsto leer una declaración.
If you envisage reading out a statement, please send it to FAO-interpretation@fao.org. Interpreters will treat the text with full confidentiality. In a remote statement, the quality of the audio could suddenly deteriorate and be insufficient for interpretation purposes. Interpreters will state so into the microphone and will resume interpretation as soon as the sound quality allows for it.
Solicito por favor que se transmita el video inaugural de la conferencia.
Can we please show the inaugural video of the regional conference? Please go ahead.
Bienvenidas y bienvenidos a la 39ª Conferencia Regional de la FAO para América Latina y el Caribe. Brasilia es el escenario de este encuentro regional, una ciudad concebida como símbolo de integración y modernidad, reconocida por su arquitectura, su historia y su vocación de diálogo. En esta conferencia se reflejarán tanto los desafíos como el potencial de la región para avanzar hacia la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y un desarrollo sostenible que equilibre las dimensiones económica, social y ambiental. Según las últimas estimaciones de la FAO, América Latina y el Caribe ha registrado avances importantes en la reducción del hambre y la inseguridad alimentaria. Estos progresos demuestran que la acción coordinada funciona. Sin embargo, aún queda trabajo por realizar. Hoy, más de 33 millones de personas en la región aún sufren hambre. Son 33 millones de historias humanas, 33 millones de razones para acelerar la acción. Durante esta conferencia regional, representantes de los países miembros dialogarán para impulsar soluciones regionales y reforzar la acción colectiva para lograr una mejor producción, una mejor nutrición, un mejor medio ambiente y una vida mejor sin dejar a nadie atrás. Con responsabilidad compartida y visión de largo plazo, esta conferencia regional marca un nuevo paso en el fortalecimiento de sistemas agroalimentarios más eficientes, inclusivos, resilientes y sostenibles en beneficio de las personas, los territorios y las generaciones futuras. La región mira a quienes estamos aquí. Este es el momento. Este es el lugar. Y ustedes son protagonistas de la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios. Acompáñennos.
Muy buenos días a todos los delegados.
Good morning, delegates, members, official observers, and NGO spokespersons. Before we tackle the order of the day, I will give the floor to the Secretary, who has a quick announcement for you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The delegates and other participants who will be taking part in the field visit organized by the government of Brazil will be receiving by email the logistical information on these, including the time at which you'll be leaving and recommendations to ensure you have a successful experience. Can I please ask that we show Order of the Day 5 up on the screen? Please let me remind you that it's published on a daily basis in the 3 official languages on the FAO Regional Conference platform. Delegations and participants who have registered have access to this. That's all. Thank you very much, Secretary. I submit the order of the day to the delegations for their approval. Please take the floor if you have any comments. I'm assuming you're all awake, and I don't see any requests for the floor. Therefore, the order of the day is so approved. Thank you. It's worth noting that item 25, date and place of the 40th session of the Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean, was addressed during the senior officers meeting, welcoming the proposal by the government of El Salvador to host LARC 40. I still see no objections, and given that I am assuming you're all wide awake and that we do have a quorum, this is approved. The order of the day is approved. Let's continue. We will tackle item 22. It's a ministerial roundtable titled Policy Pathways to Sustainable Agriculture and Forest Management for Climate Resilient Development in Latin America and the Caribbean. This is set out in document LARC 26 in 15. The document in question analyzes the interaction between agriculture, forestry, climate change, and the use of fire, and proposes policy options to advance toward more sustainable, inclusive, resilient, productive landscapes. The aim of this dialogue is to identify regional priorities, share experiences at national level, and promote coordinated action that allows to reduce deforestation, strengthen integrated fire management, and take advantage of synergies between forests and agriculture. Dr. Chu Dong-yu, the Director General of FAO, will be providing some introductory remarks. Then, Mr. Kave, Director of the Office of Climate Change, Biodiversity, and the Environment of FAO, will be delivering a presentation on this item. Ms. Maya Takagi, leader of the regional program for FAO, will also present the document. Director General, it is an honor and a real pleasure to give you the floor. Thank you for being here, Director General.
Thank you, Ambassador. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. No, you're not sleeping well. I hope you have a good sleep, and after 2 days successful meeting, and now it's come the last day. But of course, the meeting is going to be end. The mission will never end it. Sustainable agriculture and forest management are critical for climate resilient development in Latin America and the Caribbean, and for the transformation of agro-food systems. I know here some ministers, when we established the FAO in 1943, Hot Spring, West Virginia, they say food, first United Nations Conference on Food and Agriculture. That time, agriculture covered the forestry, fishery, animals, crops, land and water, all these issues, and the trade also. That's why the FAO hosts the first committee on the agricultural trade. That time even they consider the trade is a problem. So that's why CCP, Commodity Program, actually deal with the agricultural trade. As is very important after 82 years or 3 years, 83 years, this region still from the north to the south, from Canada to Argentina. Of course, here, Brazil, United States, and others. The trade, keep the open, international trade is transparent, reliable, predictable, based on international standard. We host Secretary of the Codex and the IPPC. All this standard normative work is still very important and reliable. That's the special value from FAO during past 83 years. So when we talk about sustainable agriculture and forest management, don't forget FAO core normative work. We are not the UAEP, I especially mention that because following speaker is too much UNDP minded. Even he worked in FAO 5 years, ADG. In Chinese, the prophet said that 心在曹营，心在汉. Your body in the Cao army, but your heart in the Han, another neighbor countries, kingdom that time. So we have to keep a FAO mandate. What it means sustainable agriculture and forest management. Best FAO mandate, best FAO core value, best FAO have established practice and committees. The regional agriculture and forestry sector is both a primary source of emission and a powerful vehicle for climate solutions. In this aspect, Takagi helped me to implement from the one COP to another. We established a consistent, coherent solutions based on agro-food systems. And now internationally, the recognized value edited from FAO as a solution providers. Making coherent policy action are essential. Allow me to share some thought of the 4 interconnected policy pathways to accelerate this transition. First, strengthening policy coherence and governance. We need to adopt a system approach that integrates economic, social, and environmental objectives. This requires a move beyond silo decision makers. Even here, and the strong leadership of President Lula, they also have a coherent across 3 ministers. One deal with the big farmer, one deal with the small, medium farmers, one deal with the social protection. Yeah, that's 3 ministers, all the co-chairs here. We are happy to work with them closely and integrated collectively. Coherent national strategies must align policy objectives, instruments, and financing across the ministers. This involves strengthening governance framework to facilitate collaboration among agricultural, environment, and economic regional development authorities, especially in Brazil, Mexico, even Argentina. This part of the world is quite a big country. Central government plays a central role on the international external affairs and policy coordination. and the regional government or provincial government are critical to implement, because one province is bigger than a lot of countries. So that's very timely important to get the regional development authority to support us. This means investing in public governance and information system to generate reliable data, which is critical for designing interventions that benefit all stakeholders, including smallholder farmers. In Brazil, you still have quite a high number of the smallholder farmers. It's not only produce food for them for their own, also produce more diverse food for the world. Your big farmers is one of the staple food provided for global food security. I always say I appreciate the big farmers. They can produce 99% for the rest of the market, not for their own families or local communities. From Canada, United States, and Brazil, Argentina, or even others. Australia, New Zealand, and some Central Asias, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, or Russia. And some big countries, they provide they produce staple food. So that's why it's very essential to keep the food security for the bigger farmers. That's their special role to play. But smallholder farmers it's not a matter of the economic activity, it's a livelihood. It is of the cultural heritage from one generation to another. So we need collaboration between the government, civil society, and the private sector to translate long-term vision into viable strategy. Yesterday I mentioned this region, more and more government, they want to establish cross-term, stable state policy. That's really a good positive change. I said, like Chile, during past 30 years. So far as I know, first time I went to Chile early 1987, 39 years ago. I was in Salvador, Puerto de Monto. So they are changing government, but just keep the agriculture policy stable. Second, mobilize and de-risk climate finance. To close the finance gap needed to build climate resilience in the regions, agricultural systems requires enabling policy for creation of innovative finance instruments. I know the rich people don't like poor people. They are always worried that poor people didn't return their low or small credits. But the government should be the buffer or de-risk players. When I was a local government leader, I designed a policy which is take some risk, innovate new finance products to support smallholder farmers. But actually, trust, credibility from smallholder farmers is much better than the bigger companies. Because they owe you $2,000 for 6 months, it's a big loan for smallholder farmers. But 1 billion, it's not big for big companies. That's why the smallholder farmers, they always carry their own loan. But the government, we should offer some variable interest rate to encourage them to get more and support their agricultural production, scale up, speed up, and then they can get rid of poverty and solve the food security problem for their own first. For example, policies that support the development of high integrated carbon market can also unlock a new revenue stream for sustainable agriculture and forest conservation. In Ningxia, when I was there, we also use the roof of the farmers to install the solar panel. For 20 years, every year they can get the income from the companies who rent the roof. Because the roof for farmers is nothing, it was free. Now you can repair for them and they generate income for them. Because once they Farmers get small money, maybe only $100, $200 for their own roof. They do care. You don't need to clean up. You don't need a maintenance fee. So it's a win-win solution. Public and concession of capital can be used strategically crowd in the private sectors, and the government should provide technical assistance to lower the perceived risk of the agri-food investment. Risk is also opportunity for high profit. Fresh products like flowers and fresh vegetables and others, if you maintain by the science-based technology, supported a little bit in equipment investment, you can get a high profit than any industry products. But of course, it's a risk because of natural disaster, because of the perishable characteristic. That's why we need investment on science and technology. Policy pathway should encourage the development bank and the climate funds to align their investment with national climate strategies, create co-fund financing opportunities, and reduce the regulatory risk for the foreign capitals. The third, investing in the technology, data, and capacity. A critical policy pathway involves systematic investment in the foundational element of the modern climate smart sector based on robust data and technical capacity. And you need to collect all data from rural areas and agri-food systems. It's one of the blue areas, or deep blue areas, which the digital economy still have the biggest potential to explore. We also need a robust monitoring system in the countries like Uruguay, Salvador, and Guatemala are developing or expanding their measuring, reporting, and verification system to track progress in the agriculture and the forestry sector. Policies must ensure that systems are adequately funded and protected, provide the transparency and the accountability that investors and the international community demand. Currently, few countries' current specific technology need in their climate plans. Colombia is a good example, as it has identified 41 specific needs, including climate resilient crops, irrigation system, and remote science tools in its national climate plan. Policy can drive in progress by making technology strategy explicit, costed, and focus on both mitigation and adaptation. Public investment is needed to improve the collection and analysis of data on land use change, livestock, and forestry inventory. This includes building long-term cross-sector capacity to utilize the satellite imaging and other modern tools. I think more important, the government and the international organizations, the FAO, we have different divisions and departments, but the farmers, they never separated by divisions and departments. They always integrate on their piece of land, from crop, animals, fishery, aquaculture, and even diversify their cash crops. So please think from bottom to up, not only up, down to the bottom or ground. A lot of policymakers are only from up, down. You should think of from bottom to up. That's a FAO strategy framework when we endorsed enormously by the members, because we have all this process, up and down, down and up. Otherwise, we always say joke in China when we joke with some policymakers, you are karaoke. You know what means karaoke? Japanese event in 1980s, and everyone sing a song, and they finally give it the highest mark, which seems to make you feel a superstar. That's a policymaker. If you only play your own game, everyone say, "Oh, you are so good. Your speech is so great." That's a karaoke process. We should avoid that. We should listen to the voice from the farmers, from the ground, from the local government, and of course we consult with the members. And fourth, promoting landscape restoration and climate-smart solutions. Restoring degraded land is not just the environmental goals, but a key climate-resilient development strategy. Policy should recognize that restoration takes many forms, and the most effective policy pathway is about the tailored approach to local contexts. Integrated climate-resilient solutions should be mainstreamed into national development plan and climate strategy. Restoration and conservation efforts must be designed with a robust environmental and social safeguard. This includes equitable benefit sharing system, especially for indigenous people and the local community, who are often the frontline stewards of these landscapes. Dear colleagues, agriculture and forestry sectors sustain rural livelihood, ensure the food security position the region as the world's largest net food export. Yet, an unsustainable land management is weakening the resilience of agri-food system and the rural community. But countries in Latin America and the Caribbean are also offering powerful, sustainable, efficient, and equitable solutions such as silvopastoralism, integrated land use planning, and the robust monitoring system to guide investment. To support the producers in adopting sustainable practice, we need efficient, effective, and coherent policy pathways at the national and the regional level. Regional cooperation is crucial for sharing knowledge, mobilizing finance, and strengthening technical capacity to accelerate the transition towards more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable agri-food system. Agriculture and forestry are the complementary priority for achieving the four betters. Forest, not only for timber. Since Mr. Wu become the director, we are changing, we are transforming FAO forestry. Used to be so many decades, they only focus on conservation. Agritourism is a solution to build a bridge between agriculture and the forestry. And the cash or economic forestry it's real matters to the farmers. Environment and forest conservation is the only matter of the public and the government. If you are smallholder farmers, every day you wake up, you open your door, who pay your bill of the kids going to school? You say, please maintain the conservation of your forestry. How can you have that? You should develop some innovative intercropping system to let them combine agroforestry with the crop, with the animal husbandry. That's why the Yunnan, I was very impressed. Many years ago, I visited Yunnan province. They built the chicken, poultry, and the forestry. It's a win-win solution because chicken and pork and duck, they can help the forestry recovery. So I just showed that. International Year of Rangeland and Pastoralist in 2026 is a unique opportunity to raise awareness of positive interaction among agriculture, forestry, and rangeland and pastoralism, and to highlight their important role in sustaining communities and the environment. With coherent enabling policies, strong institutions, and effective partnerships, countries across this region can build a climate-resilient landscape that support both people and nature. Amazon is the biggest gift from the God to this region. You have no anyone have a right to destroy it, but how maintain Amazon for the future, for this planet? We have a lot of things to do together, and we need a lot of solutions. Have the smallholder farmers and the indigenous community to have their sustained life, along with the development, social development in the city or in the neighbor farmer systems. Otherwise, there are no sustainable future. Destroy is easy, restore is much more difficult. In the history, we have a lot of sad story. We try our best together with all the members of Amazon to avoid and sustainable way to how to use the gift from the God. I thank you, all the best, and use this, my last speech. I really appreciate the Brazilian government and the strong leadership of the President Lula and all the ministers, vice ministers, also director of the international cooperation agencies, and the ambassador, and the people here. We knew it's not easy to organize a meeting like this, but we are success. I'm proud of you. I'm very much appreciate all the contribution from host country and the participating countries, because that's my last regional minister conference. Once I come back, I will be former DG. Yeah, if Salvador, you just approved, Salvador become next host. So yesterday I told them, if you invite me, I try to get some tickets not covered by you. I will ask maybe Kevin to pay my ticket, or you. Yeah. You know, in Chinese culture, if you didn't treat your senior leaders well, you will lose your credit. That's why I treated Graziano so well. I used my car for him to stay in Rome for 1 week. So that's the culture. We wanted to transfer harmonized friendship culture, because we are working for the vulnerable people, for the farmers, for the consumers, for the human dignity. Thank you very much. That's your first regional minister conference. It's not easy. You passed the examination. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Director General, for your inspiring words and for reminding us that this meeting might be coming to a close, a successful one, I might add, but our mission is just beginning, and I can personally tell you, DG, that we will not lose your legacy, and you will be following us around in El Salvador and other regional conferences. So thank you so very much for being committed to us. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Zahedi, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Director General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Es un gran honor dirigirme a ustedes en la mesa.
Great honor to address this ministerial roundtable to contextualize today's dialogue. Latin America and the Caribbean is the region in which agri-food systems and forests account for the majority of rural livelihood, the territory and the economy. The agri-food forest landscapes in the region support food security, employment, cultural identities, and the global supply chains. The way in which agriculture develops and forests are managed, and more wildfires will determine the region's capacity to build resilient agri-food systems that are also sustainable and inclusive. Therefore, policy decisions that we are discussing today are so important. The context in which food, agriculture, and forests operate in the region is rapidly changing. The increase in temperatures, extended droughts, and a greater frequency of extreme phenomena are increasing pressure on agri-food systems and on forest landscapes. These pressures already affect yield, health, livestock, food security, and livelihoods. At the same time, they are promoting a trend that is of concern to us. There's an increased risk of fire. Hotter and drier conditions increase the probability for having wildfires. Severe extreme heat episodes that have affected the region in the last few years, including Brazil, show how quickly climate risks can turn into food insecurity and hunger, doing away with years of progress.
Resilience to a changing climate starts with agri-food systems. The agri-food system, and within it forests, provides solutions for building resilience, mitigating emissions, conserving and sustainably using biodiversity, and securing food security. We know what works: improved land management practices, from cover crops to crop residue management, help reduce emissions, improve soil health while protecting crops. Agroforestry practices improve soil quality, protect pollination, help farmers buffer against droughts and floods, and support more diversified incomes. Effective and coordinated management of fires can address the growing hazard threatening carbon stocks, biodiversity, and of course, food security. What needs to happen next is to help countries adopt these kinds of integrated solutions at scale. Later this year, at the 30th session of the Committee on Agriculture, members will deliberate on how we can advance agri-food system solutions that address climate resilience, sustainable use and conservation of biodiversity, and sustainable land and water management through FAO's integrated strategies. 2026 is also the year of the triple COPs, where FAO has, as the Director General said, consistently been advocating for the central message that the transformation of agri-food provides the best opportunity to achieve global climate, biodiversity, land degradation, and food security goals all at once. We see this transformative potential in the solutions for sustainable land management, in agroforestry and silvopastoral systems, and integrated management that will be discussed in depth here in our roundtable. The objectives for us in this roundtable are threefold. First, to identify priority entry points for greater policy coherence between agriculture, forest, and climate policies and actions. Second, to share experience and lessons learned from across the region. And third, to promote coordinated action that reduce deforestation, strengthen integrated forest management, forest fire management, and harness synergies between agriculture and forests. FAO, of course, stands ready to support you with evidence, with tools, with networks, as our Director General has repeatedly highlighted, and of course, technical support to strengthen food security, to protect and sustainably use forests, and build a climate resilient future. Thank you. Gracias.
Excellent, your Spanish. It's an honor to give the floor to Dr. Takagi. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Authorities here, delegates. Voy a hablar en español, señoras y señores.
I'm going to speak in Spanish. We are talking about climate resilient development in Latin America and the Caribbean, addressing it not as an abstract concept, but instead as a need and an economic, social, and productive response. Our region stores more than 1/4 of global terrestrial carbon, and it's the greatest net exporter of food across the world. This places us at the core of global food security and at the core of the climate debate. The challenge is not a minor one: how to produce more with less emissions, more resilience, and more equality. Latin America and the Caribbean produce 23% of beef worldwide, and it is expanding its agricultural production. We are not vis-à-vis a dilemma, vis-à-vis production and conservation. We are facing a territorial model issue. The good news is that there's sound evidence that forests and trees can be strategic allies for agricultural productivity. From the climate standpoint, the region is particularly sensitive to soil or land use. Emissions from agriculture, forestry, and other land uses account for around 45% of total emissions in the region. This means that climate transition in Latin America and the Caribbean will not only happen with clean energy, but also transforming landscapes and territories. One of the elements for this transformation is the use of fire. Fire as a cause and a consequence. Here is where the risk becomes tangible. Fire is a natural ecological process, but its behavior is intensifying because of man-made pressures and climate change. Fire seasons are longer, ignition sources are increasing, the fuel load is higher. In 2024, 80 million hectares burnt in our region, and by mid-2025, 11 million hectares had caught fire, including 3.5 million in a single country, that is Venezuela. In the Amazon region, the 2024 fires brought about economic damages for over $43 billion, equivalent to 1.3% of the combined GDP of the Amazon countries. It's a macroeconomic, health and productive problem, not only an environmental issue. Fires and deforestation affect basic ecosystem services, regulation of water, pollination of insects, soil fertility, and biological control. The impacts of the change in the land of use and the use of fire as a normal practice bring about environmental and social effects, the loss of biodiversity, deterioration in the quality of water, but also loss of crops, displacement of communities, and severe impacts on health are among its consequences. The rural populations, small farmers and rural populations are the most affected. This is not only an environmental priority, it has to do with health, agricultural productivity, labor, social resilience. Many of these problems persist due to governance gaps in several countries. The regulation of the use of fire is insufficient. Coordination between agriculture, the environment, and risk management is not optimal. Furthermore, monitoring and early warning systems are limited. Closing these institutional gaps is as important as adopting new technologies. By the way, the World Bank says that investing in prevention of and integrated fire management is more cost-effective than having to address emergencies. The good news is that we know what works well. Environmental incentives, community forestry, deforestation-free chains have provided concrete outcomes. Scientific evidence shows that integrating trees in agricultural systems improves soil humidity, reduces erosion, and strengthens productive resilience. When you align incentives, monitoring, land tenure security, and community participation, forests can be recovered and livelihoods improved. Agriculture and forests can be mutually reinforced. The priority now is to scale up these successful experiences. Integrated fire management, this approach proposed by FAO is a strategic one, proposes to go from reaction to prevention. It's not a matter of putting out fires, but instead of planning landscapes, reduce non-controlled burning, have monitoring and strengthen regional cooperation, because smoke does not recognize borders and emissions do not do so either, and the economic impact. So we must recognize that agriculture is not only a part of the problem, but a part of the solution through territorial planning, restoration of the forest frontier, and having an integrated management of agro-productive landscapes. Science shows that forests have a role to play at continental and regional level. Up to 40% of annual rainfall in some agricultural systems depends on forest evaporation. Agroforestry and silvopastoral systems are not secondary practices, but instead live climate infrastructure. Many challenges go beyond borders, as I already mentioned. That's why regional cooperation is essential. Shared monitoring, early warning systems, exchange of knowledge, and climate resources mobilization, forest sustain, agricultural system beyond the borders. This interdependency calls for coordinated responses. Allow me to convey three messages now. Firstly, prevention is more effective and less costly than reacting vis-a-vis disasters and having to rebuild. Secondly, agricultural policy consistency is essential to reduce vulnerabilities. And thirdly, agriculture and forest should not compete with one another. Forests do not compete with agriculture, they sustain it. Without appropriate policies, they can reinforce one another, ensuring resilient, low-emission system. The future of our system depends on our capacity of integrating production, conservation, and resilience. Thank you so much. And here are key questions for the ministerial panel. What are the main challenges your country faces in reconciling agricultural expansion with forest conservation and the reduction of unplanned use of fire? Which policies or instruments have proven to be most effective in promoting and scaling up sustainable climate resilient land and fire management approaches while maintaining productivity and rural livelihoods? And what forms of regional cooperation and international support would be most relevant to accelerate implementation and scaling up of these policy approaches? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Takagi. I now invite ministers to share their national experiences, thinking about the challenges and solutions alike to reconcile agricultural production with forest conservation and the reduction of non-planned fire use. We invite ministers to share their views, responding to the questions that Dr. Takagi detailed. We have here the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Foreign Affairs of Barbudas, Mr. Walter Christopher, Minister of Agricultural Development and Family Farming of Brazil, Mr. Paulo Teixeira, Vice Minister of Agriculture and Livestock of Costa Rica, Ms. Mary Jane Soho. Remotely, as panelists, we have the Regional Director for Strategic Planning of Bolivia, Mr. Barros, the Minister of Economic Development and Tourism and IT and Communications, Creative Economy, Agriculture, Land, Fisheries, and Cooperatives of Grenada, Mr. Lennox Andrews, the Minister of Agriculture of Guyana, Mr. Sulfikar Mustafa, the Director General of the Environment Ministry of Haiti, Mr. Joseph Emmanuel Philippe, Senior Advisor of the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries of Suriname, Mr. Gareth Brainberg. Now, I will give the floor to our panelists so that we can begin our ministerial dialogue. Each minister will have up to 4 minutes to share their perspective and answer the questions. Then, if time allows for it, the floor will be open to the delegations and then official observers and spokespersons. It is my honor to give the floor to the Permanent Secretary of Barbuda, Walter Christopher. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, DG, colleagues, delegates. Good morning. On behalf of the Honorable Anthony Smith, Minister of Agriculture, Lands, Fisheries, and the Blue Economy of Antigua Barbuda, I'm honored to be invited to speak at this 39th session of the Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, experiences across Antigua and Barbuda over the last decade have demonstrated that sustainable agri-food systems and sustainable forest management can advance in parallel through coherent policies, appropriate incentives, robust monitoring systems, community engagement, and integrated land use approaches. However, there are several challenges that present themselves. Firstly, there is competing land use due to rapid urbanization and tourism development. The key areas of conflict involve balancing infrastructural development with biodiversity and food security. Rapid development of hotels and housing often encroaches on our agricultural and forested land, creating intense spatial competition. The pressure for economic development leads to biodiversity loss and increased vulnerability to natural hazards. The second challenge is the critical issue of water insecurity. Limited water resources in our small island state of Antigua and Barbuda is a critical problem, driven by low rainfall, severe drought, and limited natural water sources. This makes us one of the most water-scarce nations in the Caribbean region. Thirdly, in Antigua and Barbuda, unplanned human-caused fires, like the burning of the invasive West Indian lemongrass in key watershed areas, drives land degradation and reduces protective ground cover. Therefore, our preferred approach is to integrate agricultural production, forestry, water, and disaster risk reduction into one system so that productivity gains do not come at the expense of ecosystem services. We continue to support measures that improve water security, consistent with FAO's ongoing work in Antigua and Barbuda, through the approach of land degradation neutrality planning. There is a need to prioritize comprehensive fire management to include risky burning and hazardous fuels in priority landscapes and protecting sensitive catchments that supply water to communities and farmers. However, there have been demonstrable practical solutions in the Body Pond area, which is a key watershed where the invasive lemongrass and recurring fire threatens. Applied field test methods have reduced the lemongrass fire cycle by adopting strategic buffer erosion control measures and replanting affected areas with fire-tolerant species. Our overall strategy is to promote sustainable agriculture and ecotourism to minimize the ecological footprint. Additionally, focused efforts are required to strengthen land governance and implement better zoning policies. The government of Antigua and Barbuda will continue to engage the FAO and other similar agencies to enhance water harvesting and storage while simultaneously promoting efficient irrigation systems, climate-smart technologies like plastic and biodegradable mulches, drought-resistant crop varieties, and solar-powered reverse osmosis package plants. Despite some successful interventions, water security remains precarious, with agriculture in strong competition with the residential and tourism sectors. Regarding regional cooperation and international support needed to accelerate implementation and scaling, Antigua and Barbuda positions itself. Our position is that high-level dialogue is required to identify regional priorities and to promote coordinated actions that harness synergies between agriculture and forestry. With respect to small island appropriate finance, we remind this body that our economies are small, undiversified, and heavily dependent on a single sector, tourism. Our narrow revenue base limits fiscal space for capital investment. Antigua and Barbuda remains a leader on climate action. We are determined to continue efforts towards developing resource mobilization strategies that incorporate varying climate finance sources. These include multilaterals like GCF, AF Adaptation Fund, Global Environmental Facility, as well as bilateral, private sector, and philanthropic sources. There are many opportunities for regional and technical cooperation on integrated fire management, including training and technical knowledge transfer, focus on human-caused fires in agriculture setting. Further, investment is necessary in production infrastructure, especially in watershed rehabilitation and soil conservation, for they are enabling conditions for food security in small developing states. Madam Chair, Antigua and Barbuda frames this response within the broader SIDS agenda, capturing the Antigua and Barbuda agenda for SIDS, which call for meaningful accelerated action to build resilience and establish sustainable development pathways. The OECS region as a whole stands ready to engage with the FAO and other regional partners to align agriculture, watershed protection, and integrated fire management. In closing, Antigua and Barbuda is grateful for the opportunity to speak at this 39th session of the Regional Conference of Latin America and the Caribbean, and we look forward to outcomes that benefit all. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señor secretario.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Now I will give the floor to Mr. Lennox Andrews of Grenada.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Director General of FAO, distinguished ministers, delegates, and partners. It is my honor, on behalf of the government and people of Grenada, to address this 39th session of the FAO Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean. Grenada thanks Director General for his presentation and offers our perspective as a small island developing state, where land is our most precious resource. Every acre degraded is a permanent loss to our productive capacity, our water security, and our resilience. Our land resources are limited, fragile, and highly exposed to climate shocks. Drought, intense rainfall, hurricanes, land degradation, and the growing threat of wildfires affect not only agriculture, but also water resources, biodiversity, and rural livelihoods. The problems are interconnected, and so must be our response. First, we are strengthening policy and governance for integrated land and water management. In Grenada, the passage of our Water Resources Management Act and the establishment of a dedicated Water Resources Management Unit have, for the first time, connected watershed management with land use planning. We are embedding sustainable land management into agricultural and environmental policies, promoting soil conservation, agroforestry, contour farming, and climate-smart practices to reduce erosion, enhance soil fertility, and build resilience. This integrated approach must be deepened and replicated across the region. Second, we are financing landscape-level restoration that delivers multiple benefits. Through the Seed Soil Care Project, with support from FAO and the GEF, Grenada has rehabilitated degraded land in the critical Les Avocats Forest Reserve, removing invasive species, stabilizing waterways, and creating local jobs. This is not only environmental restoration, it is watershed protection, climate adaptation, and rural livelihood support in a single investment. We are also working to expand access to climate finance, insurance, and targeted incentives that make sustainable production systems economically viable for farmers, supported by stronger extension services. We call on FAO and partners to help scale such integrated models across the Caribbean. Third, we are building national capacity for integrated fire management. While wildfire dynamics on small islands differ from those on larger countries, the impacts on forests, watersheds, farms, and communities can be severe. Grenada is prioritizing early warning, community-based fire prevention, public awareness, and coordination among agriculture, forestry, disaster management, and security services. Prevention must be our first line of defense, backed by preparedness and rapid response. But national action alone is not enough. We need stronger regional cooperation under FAO's leadership to support capacity building, knowledge exchange, data systems, and access to innovative technologies. Such South-South and triangular cooperation can accelerate learning and scale proven practices across our diverse landscapes. We also request guidance from FAO on strengthening governance, transparency, ownership, and monitoring, reporting, and verification system so that countries can participate responsibly in emerging forest, carbon, and ecosystem service markets, not as a primary strategy, but as a complement to sustainable forest management. In the Caribbean, scaling up sustainable land and integrated fire management must go hand in hand with agri-food system transformation, ensuring food security, reducing rural poverty, and building climate resilience. Finally, Grenada remains firmly committed to working with FAO and with regional and international partners to turn policy into action and action into measurable impact. Let us move forward together, protecting our land, safeguarding our ecosystem, and securing a resilient future for our farmers and for our people. I thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrews. Now, also remotely, we will give the floor to Senior Advisor Mr. Gerrit Breinberg of Suriname. Senior Advisor, may I please ask that you switch on your camera? You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Suriname is uniquely positioned at the intersection of agriculture development and forest stewardship. As one of the most forested countries in the world, our vision is anchored in our Green Development Strategy and the NDC 3. We are transforming our sector into modern, data-driven, and climate-resilient agriculture powerhouse. Currently, we are in the final stage of our 6th agriculture census. This will enable us to our policies are based on solid facts and data. Furthermore, the unplanned use of burn and slash is a significant risk to our ecosystem. With increasing droughts caused by climate change, it is essential that we support smallholders in transitioning towards sustainable, not terminal land clearing methods. We are turning our attention to innovative practices. Suriname is already achieving tangible results through 2 strategic pathways. One, through a pineapple pasta project, we are creating an innovative hub for indigenous and tribal communities in our interior. We are leveraging our natural heritage for the global organic market, directly linking economic growth to forest conservation. Through our integrated pest management program, we are reducing reliance on pesticides and promoting at the same time organic methods. Only strengthen the biodiversity, but also ensure our products to meet the necessary standards for our food safety. To accelerate this transition, Suriname is focused on two things. Knowledge exchange regarding integrated slash and burn management and deforestation-free supply chains. Climate finance that recognize the global ecosystem service provided by and combining data-driven policy with innovation, we are building a future that remains competitive, inclusive, and for a forage-rich country. Thank you for your attention.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. I have the honor now of recognizing the Minister of Agrarian Development and Family Agriculture of Brazil, Mr. Paulo Teixeira. You have the floor. Good morning, everyone.
I'd like to greet the FAO Director General, Dr. Chu Dong-yu, Regional Director Rene Orellana, our dear FAO Ambassador Carla Barroso, Maya Takagi, ministers, greetings all. I believe that we face a paradigm shift in agriculture. The Green Revolution, fundamental in increasing food production and promoting access to food. However, this is also a time where that paradigm, these parameters, this Green Revolution model is coming to an end. It's extremely harmful to the environment, that is the intensive use of fertilizers, those fertilizers that are oil-based, intensive use of agritoxins, deforestation, irrational use of water have all meant that that could not be a sustainable agriculture model. So we must come up with a new model, and that is agroecology. In order for that transition to happen, what we have is a scientific opportunity, a transition from a chemically based farming model to a biological farming model. In Brazil, bioinputs are being used intensively, be it by smallholders, medium-sized or large-scale farmers. It's about accelerating that transition for the agriculture sector. Here in Brazil, we've adopted a funding base for that transition. From the first year of the third term of President Lula, the ministries, including the agriculture, economy, and family farming ministries, agreed on low-carbon agriculture as a model. We agreed on a budget for this, promoting access to restorative agriculture and agroecology at a lower cost. The aim is to recover degraded land. Brazil, in terms of what it plants, also includes degraded lands, and we're now restoring degraded pastures and other land. And in that context, we have two major programs for the recovery of degraded lands. First, agroforestry through productive forests and agroforestry systems, which shift our logic to the understanding that trees are more profitable than when they're cut down. The second approach has to do with restoring pastures. Another major program in Brazil stimulates the use of bioinputs. We've just approved a law to promote bioinputs so that Brazil can accelerate that transition. We also have a program to reduce the use of agritoxins. This program was approved, and a list of toxic substances that must be banned or substituted is under review. We also have a program to reduce and substitute the use of fire in agriculture through an incentive mechanism to mechanize agriculture so as to substitute the use of fire. I hope, therefore, that Brazil, through these programs, has contributed toward this transition. All our agriculture programs have an ecological element. This is the International Year of Women Farmers, and our regime is woman-oriented and also ecology-oriented. We have a program that involves academia, researchers, agriculture workers, seeking to accelerate the environmental lens in Brazilian farming. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señor ministro.
Thank you, Minister. I'll now give the floor to the Minister of Guyana, Zulfikar Mustafa. Minister, don't forget to turn on your camera. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning, Excellencies. One theme is central to this discussion: the challenge of expanding agriculture, ensuring food security, and at the same time protecting forests and building resilience to climate change. For Guyana, this is not an abstract policy discussion. It is our daily reality. Guyana is one of the most forested countries in the world. About 86% of our landmass remains covered by forests. At the same time, most of our agriculture takes place on a very narrow coastal belt, much of it below sea level and highly vulnerable to flooding, heavy rainfall, and increasingly unpredictable dry periods. So our policy challenge has always been clear: How do we produce more food without putting pressure on our forests? And how do we help farmers adapt to a changing climate? Our response has been to focus on three areas: protecting forests as national assets, increasing agricultural productivity on existing lands, and building climate resilience into our farming system. The overarching framework for this approach is the Low Carbon Development Strategy 2030. This strategy recognizes that forests are not simply environmental resources, but also an economic asset that provide global climate services. Through our participation in the voluntary carbon market and our partnership with the Architecture for REDD+ transaction, Guyana has already earned over $750 million from forest carbon credits. But a key principle for us is that the people who protect the forest must benefit from the forest. That is why a portion of 15% of those revenue flow that time we are transforming agriculture to make it more resilient and more productive. Water management is one of the most important areas of investment. Because our agricultural land are on a low coastal plain, effective drainage and irrigation systems are essential. In recent years, we have undertaken major work to rehabilitate canals, cokers, pump station, and irrigation system across the main agriculture region. These investments help farmers manage both extreme rainfall events and dry spells, which are becoming more frequent with climate change. Rice remains our flagship crop, with around 6,000 farmers cultivating more than 232,000 acres annually. Through the Guyana Rice Development Board, we are promoting improved rice varieties that are more tolerant to drought, flood, and pests. We are also establishing climate-smart rice production models at our rice research station to demonstrate techniques that reduce risk and improve efficiency under changing weather conditions. Another important area is reducing post-harvest loss, which is often overlooked when discussing climate resilience. We are also investing in a number of projects to improve things like drying floor, improving milling capacity, and these are all applicable to the rice sector. In addition, we are also modernizing agricultural technologies that allow farmers to produce more with fewer climate risks. Across the country, we are supporting the development of shade houses, hydroponic systems, and tunnel-ventilated poultry facilities. These systems allow farmers to control temperature, water, and pests more effectively, making food production more stable, even under variable climatic conditions. We are also expanding our aquaculture and shrimp farming, which provides farmers with alternative income opportunities and makes productive use of water resources that may not be suitable for traditional crop production. Another important initiative is the expansion of our corn and soybeans production in the intermediate savannas. These areas provide an opportunity to increase food production without putting pressure on forested land. This program is helping Guyana reduce reliance on imported feed, while also supporting the regional effort to strengthen food security. We are working very closely, or we are linking this very closely to the CARICOM 25 by 2025 plus 5 initiative, which aims to reduce the Caribbean CARICOM food import bill by 25%. Guyana has also been increasing production of crops such as corn and soybeans and expanding livestock and poultry production to help supply the region. We are also supporting small ruminants development, and we are working with these small farmers. Another area also where climate consideration are central is land use policy planning. As agriculture expands, we are also ensuring that development takes place primarily on land already designated for agriculture, including savanna areas rather than forested landscape. This is one of the reasons why Guyana continues to maintain one of the lowest deforestation rates in the world. So the message from Guyana's experience is quite straightforward. Forest productivity matters. When farmers can produce more on existing land, the pressure to expand into forests is reduced. Second, climate resilience requires infrastructure. Third, communities must benefit directly from conservation. It is essential that sustainable agriculture is not about producing less. It is about producing smarter, producing more efficiently, and producing in a way that protects the natural resources on which agriculture ultimately depends. When the incentives are aligned, when farmers see productivity gain, when communities benefit from conservation, when forests generate real income value, then agriculture and forest protection no longer compete with each other. They reinforce each other's. This, in essence, is the pathway Guyana is pursuing towards climate resilience, agriculture, and sustainable forest management. Guyana policy framework demonstrates that sustainable agriculture and forest management can coexist when supported by strong governance, strategic investment, and international partnership. Through initiatives such as I said just now, LCDS 2030, RED Plus participation, forest certification system, and climate smart agriculture policy, the country has developed a model that prioritizes environmental stewardship while promoting economic growth. As Latin America and the Caribbean continue to confront climate challenges, the Guyana experience offers valuable insight into how integrated land use policies and ecosystem-based approaches can support climate resilient development. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Now I give the floor to the Vice Minister Mary Cheng Soho from Costa Rica. You have the floor. Good morning, Mr. DG, FAO representatives, ministers, here in person and online, national delegations and authorities. On behalf of Mr. Julio Carvajal, Minister of Agriculture of Costa Rica, I'd like to apologize on his behalf for not being here within the framework of this regional FAO conference for Latin America and the Caribbean. Costa Rica reaffirms its commitment towards structural transformation, which is sustainable and competitive in the agri-food system. Our public policy in the field of agriculture is the strategic roadmap to consolidate sustainable and competitive agriculture, leverage on technification, decarbonization, comprehensive management of water resources, digital transformation, and essentially the scaling up of the financial architecture for climate adaptation. In order to implement this, we've consolidated a high-impact partnership with the IBRD and the International Fund for Agricultural Development with a $140 million program, which is results-based. This is an innovative mechanism that links disbursements and implementation indicators, optimizing the efficiency of public spending and optimizing access of capital by small and medium-sized farmers. The effort would catalyze the development of over 90,000 producers, prioritizing the inclusion of youth and women, transforming key agri-food systems such as livestock, coffee and sugarcane through the implementation of nationally appropriate mitigation actions called NAMAs, and that reflect the financial profitability and ecological resilience. Within the framework of development banks, we've structured credit lines for climate adaptation with maximum interest rates of 4%, with risk mitigation mechanisms through the structuring of payment for environmental services to recognize that the capture of carbon in agricultural soil. As part of that transformation, we launched the first agricultural file, a digital tool unifying the country's productive information on a single platform, bringing together all the institutional systems, facilitating technical agricultural assistance to mitigate risk perception by financial entities. This digital file allows to reduce red tape, improve traceability, and strengthen decision-making based on reliable evidence. In parallel, within the framework of international technical cooperation with FAO, we executed a $3 million program to reform institutional governance and the scientific base of the fisheries sector, adopting a blue transformation paradigm. We are promoting competitiveness of our coastlines, harnessing the potential of aquatic agri-food systems to thus improve food and nutritional security in our country, recognizing that the data are the most valuable asset of modern agriculture. We've expanded our network of agricultural research centers across the country to focus on research according to the agroclimate conditions and the best use of soil. We have an agile institutional framework allowing the registration of 54 new agrochemical molecules, a historical milestone for our country, which had a positive impact on the renewal of the agrochemicals registry, so that producers have inputs with less impact on the environment. Not less important is the setting up of agrometeorological networks with the state-of-the-art sensors to implement early warning systems and anticipate events that can become catastrophic, providing producers with climate intelligence for the optimization and protection of crops. This multidimensional transformation is the shield that guarantees the strengthening of the agri-food systems, and it reflects great efforts not to appear on the hunger map. The design of our public policy, the strategic leadership of the Chavez-Robles administration, and the technical view of our minister have turned an agricultural model into a benchmark of sustainability. Costa Rica preaches by example. We invite the community to consolidate a cohesional approach towards a model in which competitiveness on global markets, multidimensional well-being of our societies become the standard and not the exception. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Vice Minister. I have the honor now of recognizing Director General Joseph Emmanuel of Haiti. Director, do not forget to turn on your camera. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm taking the floor on behalf of the Minister of Environment. Greetings, Director General of FAO. Haiti wishes to warmly congratulate you for the successful conduct of the regional conference. In Haiti, deforestation and land degradation hamper sustainable development, the protection of the environment, food security, and the provision of ecosystem services, as well as living conditions of our people. Our ecosystems are at risk. Some species are at risk of extinction. Our coral reefs and mangroves are severely degraded under human pressure. And the risk is that they will lose their ability to recover or might even disappear. Protected areas, our national protected areas system is insufficient in terms of coverage, especially in terms of means and alternatives to ensure effective management for our key ecosystems. The loss of these ecosystems, whose impact will only be seen in the medium and long term at national level, is a major risk. The recovery of the restoration of our tree cover is essential so that Haiti's people can have broader access and secure access to soil, water, and energy, the three main resources. It's forest cover itself that will also allow biodiversity to prosper. In Haiti, the fact that our ecosystems are naturally fragile means that over 60% of our ecosystems are on mountains, and often we have violent rains. The fact that we have all these different elements has led to a decrease in productivity. Therefore, fuel wood looks like a good alternative to agriculture. This in turn leads to deforestation, which accelerates the loss of resources and agricultural exploitation. This decapitalization goes hand in hand with a loss of social cohesion and means that people have to adopt through survival migration, which also makes it difficult to collectively manage those areas that are necessary for sustainable environmental management. Therefore, it is highly relevant that we manage agricultural lands for reforestation, woody areas, supply chains that incentivize agroforestry and silvipastoral systems. All type of reforestation systems must improve the living conditions of people, in addition to climate resilience. Restoration of our forest land must allow farmers to diversify their revenue sources to ensure the sustainable improvement of their livelihoods. We don't just need an economic and development strategy. We must also contribute to lasting environmental development. In official fora, where we analyze the main challenges faced by our agriculture sector, we must promote regional consistency. We therefore reiterate our commitment to work together and be fully aligned with the FAO Strategic Framework 2022-31. We must truly commit to joining regional efforts to combat malnutrition across its 4 interconnected dimensions. We must invest in inclusive development, sustainable natural resource management, the reduction of inequalities and poverty alike. Ladies and gentlemen, we are aware of these challenges. Therefore, Haiti is progressing toward an integrated approach to community systems, forest restoration, and watershed management. I would like to take this opportunity to convey on behalf of Mr. Visemi, our Agriculture Minister, the warmest greetings of our head of state, who is closely following the development of exchanges in the context of these initiatives. Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. Next, we will give the floor to the Director General of Bolivia, Tania Jordan. Please do not forget to switch on your camera. Good morning, FAO representatives. Can you hear me? Good morning, ministers, authorities, distinguished participants. On behalf of the Vice Minister of Strategic Planning, I wish to apologize on his behalf, given that he could not attend this meeting. It's an honor to represent him here. Under the mandate of the President, Bolivia has begun participatory management of this sector 2026-30, which seeks to promote an economy for the people, a modern, transparent Bolivia, which is also green and sustainable. In this context, one of the major challenges we face as a country is how to reconcile agricultural expansion with forest protection, unplanned use of fire, and adaptation to climate change. Therefore, the Vice Ministry of Strategic Planning is envisaging greater integration of land use planning within our medium and long-term planning. We seek to reduce the unhindered expansion of the agricultural border, or frontier rather. We seek to also incorporate we seek to reduce the unhampered expansion of agricultural land, incorporate technology and biotechnology to improve productivity, promote private investment, seek to produce more and better with less pressure on ecosystems. Therefore, one pillar is legal security of tenure. Without this, there can be land trafficking and land degradation. Also, certain historical incentives that can be linked with harmful practices have shown that this does not improve productive use. This needs to be reviewed. Indiscriminate use of fire has also made it difficult to advance toward responsible fire use. That's why we're promoting integrated fire management practices, linking different actors in the field to reduce wildfires and risk. At the same time, we're working on giving value to forests. A second pillar is biotechnology and competitiveness. We want to produce more with less land, with better management, better efficiency, and less pressure on our areas. Therefore, we must guide producers towards sustainable use of soils, preserving their productivity over time, and ensuring they be aware of technological development that they can contribute to these goals. Also, we must improve access to strategic inputs and the involvement of institutions and bodies that provide protective services. We've also been working on technical tools that allow us to translate this guidance into concrete decisions, geographical analysis, regulatory and institutional frameworks toward more sustainable agriculture. We also feel that regional cooperation is key. The exchange of experiences in land management, fire management, climate resilient agriculture, and green financing can accelerate this transformation. We reiterate our commitment to fostering our country's neutrality in land use as a basis for improving decision-making to strengthen productive public policy and responsible environmental practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. With this, we conclude the speeches of national authorities. We had 9 all told. I thank you very much for your comments and reflections. And now, before giving the floor to the delegations, I invite Mr. Simin Bo, Director of the Forestry Division of FAO, to make comments on the discussed topics. You have the floor, Director.
Thank you, Carla. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, please allow me to highlight a few key reflections emerging from these interactive discussions on this topic. So firstly, I think integrated and coherent land use decision on agriculture and forestry are central to both climate stability and food security. Agriculture and forestry linkages through agroforestry, agroecology, and productive forests are instrumental to climate resilient, biodiversity positive, and productive agri-food systems. So when managed in isolation, they can generate risk. But when managed coherently, they generate resilience and productivity. So second, climate change is no longer a distant concern. So it's no longer a distant concern. It is a reality, especially considering the increasing frequency, intensity, and severity of wildfires, which is one of the major drivers of continuous forest loss and degradation. So this reinforces the importance of prevention, integrated planning, and coordinated action. So for example, FAO through its Global Fire Hub is promoting the integrated fire management and transformative shift from traditional reactive approach focusing on fire suppression to the current reactive approach focusing on preparedness and pre-warning. So thirdly, forests and trees are not simply environmental assets. They are strategic assets for development, and they are a major source of food. So the DG in his opening remarks also mentioned about the transformative changes of FAO forestry in the past years. So we have developed a FAO Forestry Roadmap 2431 with our balanced approach to the protective and productive functions of forests. So, and we are working under three global objective, say, frameworks on protection, focusing on, say, the niches of FAO to address climate, biodiversity, and land degradation. And secondly, on production, so focusing on forest food, sustainable value chains, and resilience of these, say, forest ecosystems, and also on innovation. So we firmly believe that innovation will shape the future of the forestry sector. And so the guidance from actually FAO members have been very clear. So we need to strengthen linkages, align strategies, and scale up actions that enhance the contribution of forests and trees to food security and climate resilient agriculture. So Latin America and the Caribbean has the opportunity to lead by examples. I think the Terra initiative and the global productive forest initiative are good examples. So by aligning policies, supporting rural communities, and investing in sustainable landscape management, the region can demonstrate that the productivity and sustainability are mutually reinforcing objectives. So FAO stands ready to continue supporting members in translating ambitions into concrete actions. So together we can, advance towards a landscape that are productive, resilient, and inclusive for the current and future generations. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director, and I commend you on the Global Fire Hub initiative. And I'd also like to highlight the fact that you say that the region can lead by example. We are willing to do so. I invite the delegations who would like to take the floor to raise their hands in the room or online. We have 10 minutes left to wrap up this section, so be brief, please. Honduras requested the floor, and then Paraguay. Good morning, everyone. FAO representatives, ministers, delegations, and those who are online. Honduras, as you well know, has been affected by climate change. We have forest fires in the dry season. Our country is divided into departments, municipalities, communities, and I say this because FAO at one time supported us with an agroforestry system called Quesumual, and I mention it because it's important for you to be aware of it. This system is an agroforestry system that was implemented in the south of the Lempira department. This area is strongly affected by fires. So we substituted the felling of forests in the area. Lots of beans and maize is produced there. So instead of felling, they would burn forests. But in this system, the native trees are left, and trees like the guayaba are also in the area, but we manage trees, so and people can still produce on their farms. By felling, there is biomass to store moisture, which increases humidity from 15 to 20%. We also use no-till, and this helps to preserve the soil so that it doesn't deteriorate. So the people in this area no longer burn. But I'd also like to mention that the local authorities must take drastic measures. At that time, municipal ordinances were issued. Whoever would burn would go into prison. So the mayor's mother was a farmer, and she didn't hear about the ordinance, and she was the first one to burn. So the mayor sent her to prison, and people said, well, if his mother went to prison, imagine the rest. So that was indeed important. At the central government level, we must go back to what we did in the past that were good things, because we do have certain good things, but we leave them aside. So we must bring back the good things that can be put into practice. Thank you. Thank you, Honduras, for your eloquent words. Now we give the floor to Paraguay, followed by Argentina. Thank you, Madam Chair. My delegation would like to thank FAO for the presentation and the ministers for the experiences shared at this roundtable, as well as for the positive incentives. As to the Secretariat's document, some assertions do not properly reflect the heterogeneities and specificities of the region's countries. FAO should provide greater visibility to these aspects in future reports. As regards the assertions on the emissions of the agricultural sector, data submitted do not include essential data for the interpretation of these within a specific context, and could promote an incorrect vision of the agriculture in the region. It has the highest indices of forest conservation in the region, and agriculture is the driver of many of its economies. Data must be contextualized. The index to be considered conservation-wise may not necessarily be agricultural expansion, but the minimum requirements for conservation and maintenance on each farm. The approach as to priorities and contributions in climate change are not universal. They are governed by a series of principles, rights, and obligations established in multilateral environmental agreements. So we urge FAO to include in its analysis a respectful vision of the principles and obligations of the state regarding the development and implementation of value chains free of deforestation. These must be done in accordance with the national frameworks and cannot be a factor for accessing markets. Positive incentive systems should be developed instead of a restrictive system. We ask FAO to present more balanced visions on this kind of measure and analyze the potential negative effects for the region's exports in response to the application of these unilateral measures. The proposal of adapting agricultural subsidies, while the numbers of figures submitted do not respond to the region's data. The region has the lowest levels of subsidies. We ask FAO not to use global data in regional analysis because this can result in misinformation. And the subsidies must be provided pursuant to multilateral trade regulations. And as to forest fire management, international cooperation must target the strengthening of existing processes, recognizing outcomes achieved by members at regional and national levels. Thank you very much. So now we recognize Argentina and then St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you, Ambassador. I thank the panel of experts and the ministers for the experiences they've shared, which are very valuable for our delegation. And with regard to the report, Argentina recognizes the importance of the report to promote land management practices, contributing to ecosystem conservation and the prevention of wildfires. At the same time, we deem it necessary for the approach to bear in mind the different economic, social, and productive contexts in which rural activities take place. In this regard, Argentina emphasizes the importance of reinforcing planning, comprehensive fire management, the exchange of good practices to reduce impacts on ecosystems, respecting, meanwhile, local knowledge and their sustainability in the environment. We deem that global estimates that blame agriculture for 90% of deforestation must be used prudently. The loss of forest is related to many factors in very diverse realities in different geographical regions. Within this context, it is essential to have integrated approaches blending conservation and the sustainable development of agricultural production and livelihoods. On the other hand, regarding recommendations for sustainable production and territorial governance, Argentina recognizes the importance of promoting sustainable agri-food chains. Nonetheless, it considered it essential for guidance to improve a better performance of the supply chains, be designed on the basis of transparency and also based on scientific evidence compatible with international trade rules, avoiding barriers for producing countries. We are concerned particularly about the fact that the promotion of certification systems may validate unilateral systems. And I will conclude by saying that for Argentina, working with FAO is important. The work that we do in strengthening public policies and institutional capabilities, and we hope that this positive relationship may continue growing in the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and then we will begin hearing from the private sector and academia spokesperson, St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Madam Chair, I wanted very quickly to lend my voice to the discussion, the conversation, as it were, as it regards to land use. One of the issues that I did not hear raised at all, and I don't know that this matter is particular to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and it has to do with the existence of cemeteries, where in the case of St. Vincent, we have a number of cemeteries as they are being filled out, and then there is a request to establish new cemeteries. It might appear to be a health issue or an environmental issue, but it is for us an agricultural issue because less and less lands are becoming available for agricultural production. And I don't know the extent to which the work of the FAO can provide advisory services to us, mindful of the fact that there is a cultural issue that pervades, in that our people seemingly don't believe in cremation generally, we don't believe in stacking in the burial. Everybody wants to have their own space, their own 6 feet. And so land usage has become a significant issue for us. As it regards climate change, clearly the issues of climate change are affecting small and vulnerable islands like St. Vincent and the Grenadines more than anything else. I don't know, Madam Chair, the delegates, if you paid attention to a tropical storm Beryl that decimated part of St. Vincent and the Grenadines about a year and a half ago. Not only were the low-lying seashore areas for which some agricultural production is done has suffered great degradation, but our forest reserve also suffered big-time beating as a consequence of the passage of this hurricane. And so for us, the issue of climate change and the significant impact it is having not only on our forests, but also on our low-lying communities is a matter that we believe that is important, that if FAO, through the experiences, and I agree with, I think it's Paraguay, who said, who cautioned that we don't try to make the one-size-fits-all practice go into play. But there may be experiences and lessons learned within the archives of the FAO that can then be transferred for learning to small island developing states like St. Vincent and the Grenadines, so that it would allow us to properly position ourselves in the face of natural disasters. How can we, one, protect low-lying agricultural production lands, and at the same time, protect our forest reserve? Thank you.
Thank you so very much, St. Vincent and Grenadines, for bringing up those very relevant and central issues, even if they are not necessarily as visible as others, they are surely central. Entonces ahora tengo la satisfacción de pasar a los...
It is now my pleasure to give the floor to the spokespersons, first the private sector and then academia. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair, Secretary, Ministers. The private sector expresses thanks to the regional consultation mechanism that allows us not only to lend a voice to those of us who make up the mechanism, but also to conduct positive contamination. Since January, we must say that some of the positive elements we've seen fall under better environment, but some also fall under a better environment and better life, specifically the need to strengthen policies, guarantee the tenure of rights. Also in a cross-cutting fashion, there's a need for public-private partnerships so as to avoid overlapping in the use of resources. The private sector proposes the creation of mechanisms that facilitate access to knowledge and environmental awareness for producers, as well as a certification and traceability mechanism, as well as incentives for circular economy. If we apply these requests to the issue at hand, we could achieve integrated agri-food systems with ecotourism in a sustainable fashion, because this harnesses local economies, preserves resources, brings about investments and more open markets. I don't know whether I was interrupted, says the speaker. No, please continue. I'll just conclude by saying that if we facilitate the new strategy for partnership with the private sector, this will open an opportunity up for interaction with the private sector and to define the accelerators for implementation so that we can achieve impact at territorial level, adapting to necessities at country and local levels. Thank you. Thank you for bringing up this important element on behalf of the private sector. I'll now give the floor to Spokesperson from academia. Thank you very much for this opportunity. The academic and scientific sectors feel that agriculture is central to livelihoods, food security, and local and global supply chains. However, there are many challenges and threats at territorial level. This sector wishes to cooperate through the strengths and opportunities they have. We propose that the transformation of agri-food systems be based on the strengthening of technical capacity, ethical leadership, and governance schemes, which would allow for the exchange of knowledge and the participation of communities at territorial level. Our universities, research centers, and experts in each of our countries have sound programs that link in with our communities. Therefore, we can act as bridges between and among the different decision makers so as to co-create and collaborate with communities and actors on the ground. Thank you. Thank you very much, spokesperson from academia, for mentioning the fact that we can act as a bridge between the different stakeholders and initiatives. Last, we have the representative from civil society on Zoom.
Marjorie, I think you have the floor.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My video isn't working well, so please forgive me. I don't have very good bandwidth, so it may go out. Good morning. Good morning. Again, this is Marjorie Bizar. Civil society, Akari. Today's intervention, and I know I will have a very short time. All protocols being observed. It is both an honor and a privilege to stand before this esteemed body of leaders, practitioners, decision makers, and other critical stakeholders and offer these interventions on behalf of civil society from the Caribbean. As you are all aware, the Caribbean is uniquely designed culturally and linguistically. We are diverse, and we're strategically located from both a climatic and proximity to major countries' perspective. What that means is, in no short part, is that any solution we devise must contemplate and include these realities, as there is truly no one-size-fits-all formula that will transformatively and sustainably address what ails us. As we all know, or there may be those of us who do not have this information, but in the Caribbean, many of our non-contiguous island nations are categorized by the UN as small developing states, or SIDS. And there is consensus around the need to ensure that the 18 islands in our region, so designated, Antigua and Barbuda among them, need to be addressed uniquely. Please also keep in mind how uniquely vulnerable we are climatically with respect to interconnectivity, economically, and even socially. Our numbers tend to put us at a disadvantage and has historically proven challenging as we have to compete with larger, physically connected actors and interests, which should be kept front of mind as we decision make, legislate, implement, continuously monitor and evaluate, and improve on how we effect true, expert-driven and data-informed change and development. I'm sorry, I'm hustling. I wanted to make sure I get everything in there, the important and key pieces. All right, so here we have an opportunity to effectively and sustainably turn the tides and respond en masse to the powers that attempt to drown or consume us. And it is truly one of the most critical times in our history of global, regional, and local change, and the declaration coming out of the recent civil society consultation in January of this year, where we in no uncertain terms articulated our rejection of a development model that leaves us hungry, in ill health, landless, voiceless, and excluded, disrespected and devalued, divested of agency, and economically deprived, as well as generationally disadvantaged. And this LARC 39 offers us a place where change, true transformative, sustainable change and power sharing can truly emerge. The way we achieve that is not driven by any single factor, but by an intersectional, contemporary, backward, and forward-looking approach and strategic plan and framework for solving what ails us. Even as an intersectional approach is the statistically and historically the most effective one. That approach requires a core hub or core conceptual seed from which all else pivots. That core is people, the person, and the planet as its complement naturally. Why is this strategic approach the best? And what we are suggesting makes best sense in this context because the data proves it out. We also look at the United Nations and the Charter, people first. That's the first, land next. So how do we decision make? Let me give you some data and statistics about the Caribbean region that's helpful to contextualize my comments. We have, of the more than 670 million people in Latin America and the Caribbean, 44.8 million persons call the Caribbean home. The total food import bill for the Caribbean, according to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank's Eastern Caribbean Central Union, 1.8 billion in 2022, a 19% increase from the previous year. This is our reality. Also, here are a few more statistics that I believe will help to contextualize my comments. When we look at land loss, let me toggle on a bit here. Land loss, annual arable land loss, approximately 10 million hectares of arable land has been lost every year. Total degraded land up 40%. Future projections, we are by 2050 will have degraded most of our surface area. There's land grabbing, urbanization pressures. While there are not exact comprehensive figures on the total acreage or arable and livable land lost specifically to predatory development in the Caribbean, that's not centralized. Available data shows that large-scale land conversion for tourism, residential, and foreign-led projects are accelerating. What does that mean? We're not putting people or food first. We're not putting planet first. Also, let's talk about FAO's better life, better environment, better production, the four betters. And I'm suggesting a fifth, better power positioning. Consider the seeding analogy I made above. It is inconvertible truth that without life itself, the rest becomes moot. People first. The natural outgrowth of having life is that one's life is better. Think about it. Can a sick person sow, tend, grow, harvest, reap, glean, participate economically, socially, or otherwise, where they're unable to engage in their areas of economic and social sources? No, they cannot. And that's why a person and planet first approach optimizes our ability to effectively and sustainably address the issues confronting us in the agricultural space in a way that decades of trials and errors have yet to secure. Health and wellness and well-being are essential assets for any entrepreneur, worker, person, healthy people, and planet, and robust socioeconomic and personal outcomes. Here, in order to create and sustain enabling environments, it is critical to prioritize ensuring that adequate, affordable, and healthy foods, health and wellness, and good nutrition are primary focal points and investments, as well as that shelter and other so-called basic needs being met, the rest, or else the rest of the conversation becomes moot. Investments, sustainable investments in priorities such as Akari's tree planting and backyard and family farming initiative, our agripreneurship business development and supports incubator program are essential, along with ongoing efforts and success models such as the Caribbean Network of Rural Women Producers, CANROP, and Rural Women in Agriculture. Akari is looking to identify, tap into, upskill, and educate, train, and integrate, include non-traditional groups into our agricultural ecosystem as we, among other things, capacity build. Our approach includes targeting persons with disabilities and at-risk and other youth, their families, communities, as a strategies for improving personal and professional outcomes, public engagement and inclusion, stimulating the economy and providing healthy foods and others locally sourced imports by upskilling, empowering, and supporting novel, local-driven approaches. This is how we sustainably create frameworks and approaches that enhance and adapt to each unique local context in bringing and celebrating new normal in the ag space. For instance, 2026, the United Nations International Year of the World Farmer. We are also committed to the principle that without respect for the ancestral, legal, and other rights to ancestral lands and economic, social, and financial benefit that emanate from such ownership and accrues to our indigenous, peasant, Afro descent, fisherfolk, artisanal.
Hello, Marjorie. Marjorie, I'm so very, yes, I'm so very glad for you bringing us the perspective and the need for us to put people first, Marjorie. So it was really inspiring to hear from you and be sure that we will be following up on that. Thank you so very much, Marjorie. Con esta última intervención.
And on this last intervention, we have reached the end of this ministerial dialogue, which focuses on three main messages. One, the importance of reducing deforestation and making productive systems to serve food and to meet with climate commitments. Agroforestry and focusing on the land offers multiple benefits, and the central importance of regional cooperation and technical and financial support to scale up what we already know works. I thank all the delegations for their valuable contributions, and we will have high-level acts and ministerial roundtables. Thank you all for taking part in national authorities, all the comments, all the reflections, all the ideas that were truly enriching and allow us to further strengthen our commitment. The next point in order of the day is topic 26, varied topics. The chair has received a request from the delegation of Colombia to discuss something. Yes, Colombia, you have the floor as you have requested to speak. Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, we uploaded a video that we would like to share at the plenary before we give our speech.
Sí, por favor, que pongan.
La segunda conferencia internacional sobre reforma agraria y desarrollo rural, realizada por el gobierno del presidente Gustavo Petro, concluye con un
La declaración de 32 puntos suscrita por 28 estados participantes recoge un consenso global. La reforma agraria vuelve a ocupar un lugar central en las políticas públicas del siglo XXI. Una hoja de ruta que reconoce que garantizar el acceso justo a la tierra no es solo una deuda histórica con los pueblos rurales, sino también una condición indispensable para enfrentar las crisis alimentaria, climática y ambiental que atraviesa la humanidad.
Se necesita equilibrar la sociedad desde el punto de vista de la igualdad, para lograr poner la bandera de la vida de nuevo en el planeta Tierra, como guía prioritaria de la acción humana y política. Entonces, esa necesidad de tierra en términos de tierra de campo se llama reforma agraria. Paz en Colombia significa reforma agraria. Simple.
Cartagena fue el epicentro de la conversación global sobre el futuro de la tierra, en la cual la redistribución y el acceso equitativo a ella fue el tema central. 843 participantes internacionales provenientes de 102 países y 3.509 nacionales consolidaron a ICAR más 20 como el encuentro más amplio y diverso que se ha realizado en el mundo sobre reforma agraria, con un registro de asistencia sin precedentes de 114.138 personas durante la semana. Se realizaron 130 foros, talleres, paneles y exposiciones, con participación de 60 ponentes internacionales que abrieron la discusión a múltiples voces y experiencias. Los encuentros se articularon con la Revolución por la Vida, en una apuesta por fortalecer la producción de alimentos y garantizar justicia social y ambiental para las comunidades rurales. La conferencia reunió también a 40 voceros nacionales, 20 organismos multilaterales y agencias del sistema de de Naciones Unidas, y 15 destacados académicos internacionales quienes coincidieron en un mensaje común. El futuro de la humanidad pasa por transformar los sistemas agroalimentarios, fortalecer la agroecología y reconocer el papel fundamental de las mujeres, los jóvenes y las comunidades rurales en el cuidado de la tierra.
A Colômbia resgata. A Colômbia muita força para o mundo, o tema da reforma agrária. 20 tema da reforma agrária. Tempo que não tinha uma conferência internacional. Por isso a nossa gratidão à Colômbia, ao Ministério da Agricultura, por essa segunda conferência internacional de reforma agrária.
El apoyo técnico de la FAO fue de especial importancia para el desarrollo del foro internacional.
Nuestro rol como la FAO es traer evidencia para ayudar a estos procesos, transformar esa evidencia en acción. Trabajamos juntos con el observatorio, que sigamos ayudando en todo lo que vamos a hacer para ayudar a esa reforma agraria y el desarrollo rural.
La ICAR más 20 deja que la tierra no es solo un recurso económico, que la tierra no es solo el fundamento de la vida, un llamado global a avanzar hacia sistemas agroalimentarios más justos, territorios rurales vivos y sociedades capaces de reconciliar producción, naturaleza y dignidad humana.
Esta conferencia quizá con el mayor éxito, y es que el mundo está hablando hoy de la reforma agraria y de la importancia de la tierra. Y eso es el mayor logro. Con el movimiento agrario internacional, con las 56 delegaciones oficiales y con la voz de la academia, Cartagena le dice al mundo que la tierra es para trabajar, que la tierra es para comer, que la tierra es para la vida.
Con dignidad cumplimos. Gobierno de Colombia. Gobierno de Colombia.
Gobierno de Colombia.
Muchísimas gracias por el video.
Thank you for the video. Colombia, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. Ministers, representatives of agrarian reform, delegates, and ladies and gentlemen. Colombia is here to share with the international conference the results from the Second International Conference on Agrarian Reform and Rural Development, ICAD +20, which was held in Cartagena just last week, with the co-organization of the government of Brazil and the support of the FAO. This is part of the President's commitment for environmental, social, agrarian, and economic issues. There are great connects between ICAD +20 and the guidelines of fisheries and food in the World Food Organization, and all of the organizations that we're working with in this organization. ICAD +20 was a wonderful organization. There were official delegations from over 55 countries, representatives from civil society and organizations, indigenous organizations and farmers organizations, and over 300 universities and research centers. This is already an excellent result, and it shows global understanding that agrarian reform and sustainable development are absolutely critical for nutritional development and the fight against hunger and peace building. The conference and the 20 years that have passed since ICAD, the first ICAD +20, which was in Brazil. There is still informality where people do not have any food security. There are gaps and there are landholding issues, and we need to continue working on these challenges. During the conference, the FAO presented its report on landholding and governance. And what we found is alarming. We need to act and work together to ensure that there is more justice. We need to work on land reform, land justice, and mechanisms for legal mechanisms for those who already work the land. For Latin America and the Caribbean, there are certain aspects that stand out. The region is one of the most unequal in terms of land throughout the world. Land distribution is highly distributed, one of the most highly concentrated in the world. Over 30% of the landholders hold over 60% of the production. The largest producers hold 80% of the land, And in fact, this number reaches 88% when we expand the group in the top tranche. When we look at the land and land holding, participation of 10%, the biggest 10%, increases significantly. So, Latin America is going against the tides. In Africa and Asia, agrarian reform has been making address. Here we've seen landholding become even more concentrated. Expansion has led to higher deforestation. Between 2001 to 2023, 85 million hectares of forest were lost to farming. There are new programs that are being used to offset this. Globally, 8.8 million hectares have been used for new projects for things like carbon capture. In Colombia, territorial insecurity is 2.5 times greater than in other areas. Indigenous communities and Afro-descendant communities don't have protection. 72% of them do not have protection compared to 32% of other landholders. Only 7 countries in the region explicitly recognize gender disparities or gender inequalities in landholding, and so this also needs to be addressed in the region. Property and landholding is also limited. Although the rights for women landholders has been firmly recognized, oftentimes they are left aside. So there is often opacity in what we see with women landholders and women farmers. In Latin America, the lack of formal guidelines and formal laws is a serious issue that we're facing. Ladies and gentlemen, this diagnosis demands answers, and we need a resolution that reinforces what we started in Porto Alegre. Therefore, we are asking that small producers be recognized. Indigenous peoples and local communities are absolutely critical for food production. Conservation of biodiversity is also critical. We need to promote equal and equitable access to land, to forests, and to fisheries through voluntary guidelines. We need to protect all collective forms of land ownership as recognized in law. We need to recognize groups that face vulnerability and ensure active and free significant participation under free informed consent. We need to promote agroecological foci to address our food issues and ensure more just, sustainable, and equitable food production. We need to recognize the biodiversity of our lands. So ECARD plus 20 is absolutely directly pertinent for what we discussed in this regional conference here, both in terms of food prices, etc. Agrarian reform is absolutely critical if we want to address the critical issues of food hunger that we are facing throughout the region. ECARD plus 20 explicitly recommends mechanisms for intersectorial management, for land management, for water management, so that water and land be responsibly managed. Likewise, align with item 4 and reduction of inequalities. Our recommendation is that we strengthen the guidelines for land management. In line with what we have seen in this regional in the report from this region, we are working together with FAO. We recommend that FAO use what we are our recommendations from the ECARD plus 20 and submit them to the international bodies. In these multinational spaces in which we all work for agrarian reform, we all need to work together. the land its cultural sustenance for millions and millions of people. Equitable access is indispensable for social justice, for food security, and for peace. With the success in this space, we recommend that we have a meeting like this every 3 years so that we continue to address these absolutely critical issues. At least 3 countries have agreed to organize the following conference, the next conference in 3 years, focusing also on Africa and Latin America, and Asia. We want this. We want the report. We ask that the report from Cartagena be included as an important part and a critical part of this record and report that you're submitting for this conference as well.
En coherencia con las prioridades regionales adoptado en este periodo de sesiones. Colombia agradece
Colombia thanks the FAO and the government of Brazil for their commitment and their help with organizing economies, for their support with a more sustainable, just, and resilient food systems. Thank you. And we ask that this intervention also be included in the final report from the regional conference. Thank you very much.
El Salvador tiene la palabra.
El Salvador, the floor is yours.
Bueno, mientras buscamos ahí el colega del Salvador, le paso la palabra a Brasil.
We cannot find El Salvador, so Brazil, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señora Presidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Registrar el reconocimiento de Brasil por el
Brazil
éxito de la segunda conferencia
recognizes for the success of the second International Conference on Agrarian Reform and Rural Development, which took place last week in Cartagena, Colombia. We are internationally committed to responsible governance of land. Congratulations to the government of Colombia for the wonderful efforts in organizing such a wonderful conference, and we thank you for your trust in Brazil as co-organizer of this very important process. We also congratulate the 28 countries throughout the world who reached a consensual declaration, as well as the other participants from government, civil society, and academia, reaffirming our international commitment to responsible governance of land, forests, and fishing resources. This result is the result of long-term work headed by FAO and by its specialized teams, and focuses on special topics, especially on public policy and international consensus, among others.
Among them, I could highlight the voluntary guidelines on responsible governance of land holding, fisheries, and forests, approved unanimously in the World Food Security Committee. G+20 also contributed to, ICARD +20 also contributed to this, and the first edition of the report on the state of and land and governance of land holding. These advances are in line with the different levels of the FAO, forests, coastal fisheries, that play an essential role in the articulation between agriculture, fishing resources, and forests. I also greet the countries that have already stated their interest in being the venue for the next editions of this process: Indonesia, South Africa, and Mexico, which will certainly contribute to give continuity to this global dialogue. The Brazilian experience shows that the agricultural reform could be a powerful instrument for the reduction of agricultural conflicts, productive inclusion, increase in the production of food, and the protection of natural resources and biodiversity. When the democratic and peaceful reform is carried out, the agricultural reform and regularization, indigenous territorial regularization,
is carried out. It is essential to face historical disparities and promote peace in a long-lasting way. Brazil is committed to this collective national, international effort to promote responsible governance of the land, fishing resources, and forests based on the law, on dialogues and international cooperation. We will continue to work with the countries in this region and with the FAO to transform these commitments into specific policies that will strengthen family agriculture and will recognize the fundamental role that our farmers and family farmers, both in the production of healthy foods as well as in sustainable management of natural resources. Thank you very much, Chair, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Now, El Salvador has the floor.
Solo como punto aclaratorio, muy buena.
Just as a clarification, good morning, everyone. Okay, well, for the presentation of the video, this has to do with the topic. Please, can we show the video? Well, okay. First of all,
El Salvador, un destino incomparable y un...
and all the organization of this very important conference. Where, on behalf of the government of President Nayib Bukele, I want to leave you all with a message, which is that, excuse me, can you please speak closer to the microphone? Hello, hello, can you hear me better? Yes. First, I want to thank the government of Brazil for being the venue of this very important conference. And as a message of President Nayib Bukele, and it's that with will, we can put an end to hunger, not only in our countries, but as a region. We can be so strong that we can even feed the rest of the world. Of course, each country has that mission. But as a region, and if we have the will, we can be the giants that many in the region believe we are, and the governments that are represented here, so that everyone can have healthy food, good nutrition. And I want to thank the FAO for having given us the opportunity to be the next venue, and that the results that we have come here to present, that we presented yesterday, rest assured that they will be much better when we meet again in Salvador during the next LARC. Thank you very much, and you can now show the video.
El Salvador, un destino incomparable y uno de los países más seguros del mundo. Gracias a esta transformación, hemos sido sede de eventos de talla mundial. Juegos Centroamericanos y del Caribe. Torneo Mundial de Surf. Miss Universo. Cumbre de la Industria. Residencia Centroamericana de Shakira. Ironman 70.3. Hoy, El Salvador es un país referente en la región, pero también estamos trabajando en la transformación del futuro de nuestro pueblo y de nuestra agricultura. Por todo esto, queremos recibirlos en 2028 con la hospitalidad que caracteriza a los salvadoreños y con toda nuestra infraestructura preparada para el desarrollo de eventos de alto nivel. Conferencia Regional de la FAO 2028. El Salvador los espera.
El Salvador awaits you.
Muchas gracias, Salvador.
Thank you very much, El Salvador. We wish you much success in the organization. And, well, of course, we will remain here to support you in whatever is necessary. So we wish you much success. Okay, now I have the request from Paraguay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We thank Salvador for the presentation made. We hope to actively participate and collaborate with El Salvador during the next LARC. However, Chair, I'd like to briefly refer to the item on the agenda on a specific request by the delegation of Colombia a few minutes ago. My country participated in ICARD plus 20 because the agricultural reform is important, but we have not signed the declaration because we consider that it was not negotiated adequately. And this is a reality that is shown in the fact that from the 56 participants, only 28 signed that document, and of these, only 7 are from the region. So that hardly reflects a consensus, as was stated by the delegation of Colombia during its presentation. We cannot support the Declaration of Cartagena, nor the Declaration of Colombia, because it only shows their vision of the event and not the region's vision, nor does it show the existing discrepancies in the region on this and in this event, that throughout the conference, several delegations have stated our position in this regard. We also remind you that other annexes have not been included, not even the presentations made by President Lula, the Director General of the FAO, or other ministers. So we consider that it is not pertinent to support or give way to Colombia's request. Thank you. Argentina, followed by Mexico. Thank you, Chair. Argentina would like to second Paraguay's position on ICARD plus 20 conference, and as we have done throughout these sessions and this meeting, we would like to remind everyone that Argentina did not participate in the conference, nor has it adhered to the declaration. Mexico, followed by Ecuador and Costa Rica. Mexico would like to show in the minutes that it appreciates the effort and the contribution by Colombia. We express our support to the results of ICARD plus 20 and the efforts to strengthen responsible governance of the land and inclusive rural development in our region. We also want to take advantage of this opportunity to very sincerely thank the government of Brazil for its generous hospitality and for having been an excellent host during this conference. We also express our recognition to the FAO and the Secretariat for the organization of this work, and the rapporteur for the careful summary of our discussions. We also want to thank El Salvador for offering to be the venue of the next regional conference. This conference has stated that the issues in our region is based on the differences in the perspectives, and that's why we consider that now more than ever we have to maintain a spirit of dialogue, respect that has historically been present in our region. Only working together can we strengthen our agri-food systems, face economic, social, and environmental pressures, the reconfiguration of international trade, geopolitical disturbances, and advance towards a more just, resilient, and sustainable future. Thank you. Ecuador, followed by Costa Rica, and then Peru. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. From Ecuador, we want to support the position of Paraguay. We did not participate in the conference, so we do not agree because there's no reason to include any annex in this declaration. On the other hand, we want to congratulate El Salvador, and we will surely be present in the next conference. And we want to thank Brazil for its hospitality and for the wonderful organization of this conference. Costa Rica, followed by Peru, and El Salvador. Thank you very much. Good day. First of all, I want to thank El Salvador and wish it much success during the next conference. It's our neighboring country. And second, we want to join and echo the words of Paraguay. Although it is true that we acknowledge the importance of what has been said by Colombia, we are not sure of the signing of the document by all the countries that have been mentioned, and Costa Rica participated but did not sign it. Thank you very much. Peru, followed by El Salvador. Good day. I'd like to first of all thank the government of Brazil for its hospitality and the efficiency in the organization of this event, as well as the FAO Secretariat. I want to congratulate El Salvador for the organization of the next meeting and express our support to the position expressed by Paraguay and other countries, while also thanking Colombia for the effort in the organization of the meeting in Cartagena, but also express our same objections expressed by Paraguay and other countries for the non-inclusion of that annex in the report. Thank you. El Salvador, and if there are no other countries in the region, we will move on to Spain. El Salvador has the floor. El Salvador participated in ICAR, but we also support the position of Paraguay regarding Colombia's motion. Spain? Good day, Chair and representative of the FAO. It's an honor to be present in this 39th period of sessions of the Regional Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean in Brasilia during a decisive moment for world food security. Undoubtedly, we're facing challenges that are shared by everyone in a context of the high volatility, trade tensions, inflation in food prices, climate crisis, degradation of soils, water scarcity, as well as emerging health issues, which require coordination at every level, regional, national, multilateral. And from Spain, we're betting on more resilient agri-food systems that are inclusive and sustainable, aligned to the framework of the FAO strategy in the context of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, reiterating our condition that the transformation of food and agricultural systems have to place people in the middle of all our efforts. We want to reiterate our commitment to a strategic region such as yours, with which we share profound historical, cultural, and economic ties. Spain will continue to work with the FAO and with the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean through technical cooperation, political dialogues, and strategic alliances, convinced that only through joint work we will be able to guarantee the right to adequate food for everyone. Finally, we wanted to take advantage of the opportunity that this forum offers to say that Spain, in September 2026, in the city of Córdoba, in Andalusia, will hold the second Ibero-American Conference of Fisheries and Agricultural Ministers. Hopefully, we will be able to provide an excellent occasion to delve into these discussions and strengthen ties of cooperation among our countries. St. Vincent and Grenadines, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I want to
Bueno, quiero usar esta oportunidad para agregar el aspecto del inglés caribeño en este aspecto. Junto con mis colegas del Caribe, CARICOM en particular, quiero usar esta oportunidad en nombre del Caribe, presentado en este foro tan importante, para agradecerle a los colegas de Brasil por la hospitalidad, por permitirnos participar en este ejercicio / evento tan importante. Presidente, tenemos que reconocer que los conceptos tienen diferentes aplicaciones. En los últimos días que hemos estado aquí, hemos escuchado que la agricultura
one Brazilian said to us that they have a small family farm and that they're rearing cattle. And when we asked of the number of cattle on that farm, it was 3,000 plus. To us, some of us in the Caribbean, that represents the entire cattle stock across the island mass. It therefore places an important subject matter in context, that when we have conversations at FAO and we look at resource allocation and how do we ensure that the members of FAO are working in line with each other, that resource allocation must be considered in that pragmatic framework. We thank FAO, and as a junior minister coming to this first event, I trust that that FAO will continue to work along with us to addressing the platitude of issues that we have raised, from hunger to food insecurity across the Caribbean, and that would position us as a people to ensure that we too are taking our rightful stage, our rightful place, that is, on the global stage. I'd like to, on our behalf again, extend thanks to El Salvador for agreeing to host the 40th meeting in their country, and we look forward to participating in that event, and we trust in that, having left that 40th event, that the Caribbean will be better positioned and will be seen as more equitable partners in the FAO family. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Haiti, and followed by Belize.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Haïti ne peut, sans vouloir, de ne pas remercier le peuple brésilien, et plus précisément le président Lula, pour son engagement pris en faveur d'Haïti lors de son intervention avant-hier. Et nous tenons à remercier très sincèrement la FAO de nous avoir invités, d'avoir invité la délégation haïtienne pour prendre part à cet événement combien important pour l'avenir de la région. Certes, Haïti, c'est un pays qui se cherche et nous sommes convaincus que nous nous retrouverons. Et d'ici là, nous espérons que les recommandations qui sont faites, et plus précisément pour prendre en compte les spécificités de chaque pays de la région, et trouveront les voies et moyens pour
moving forward and making progress in the region.
Nous avons appris beaucoup de choses.
We have discussed so much in this conference. Notably, we have seen that the diversity in their different countries, with all their differences, but we will find the path forward that unites us to make progress and to reach the success for the government of Haiti, for the people of Haiti. We are, and our members of our delegation, we thank you and thank the organizers of this conference. And we are sure that the conference in Salvador and the report in which Haiti took part, we are sure that this is the future for all of us. Thank you so much. Belize, then the Dominican Republic. I just wanted to remind you that we still need to approve the reports. We don't have so much time.
Minister, you have the floor.
I'm delighted to be here, myself and my chief, representing the country of Belize. As a new Minister of Agriculture today, for over a week, I was very delighted to see what we can do together as a region. In particular, food security and nutrition food. So I'm hoping that as we go back to our countries, we may remember what was discussed over the last week and so it can be implemented. I want to thank FAO for organizing this prestigious event. Also, the government and people of Brazil, you treat us with dignity. I want to also mention the Salvador, which is much closer to me, our country, that you took up a challenge to host the next meeting in 2028. And God bless you all.
República Dominicana.
Sí, muchísimas gracias.
The Dominican Republic. We wanted to take this last few minutes before we close. Could you please speak closer to the microphone? We wanted to deeply thank the people of Brazil, the government of Brazil, for organizing this FAO event. And we would like to echo the people in El Salvador, the government of El Salvador, would like to thank you for considering us to host the next event. We would like to express our position. Having different points of views is not a difficulty, it's not a problem. We see it as a great opportunity to enrich the region. We believe that there are far more overlaps in food security and progress that will allow us to be a true example for the world in order so that we can guarantee dignified, healthy food to everyone. And we call upon us all to join together and share our experiences for the betterment of all of our people. Thank you very much. Dominican Republic, thank you very much. And this, we close the list of requests to take the floor, and we move on to the next point in the agenda, which is approval of the report from the regional conference, which is item 27. Yesterday afternoon, all delegates should have received the text of the report for review in 4 languages. We're waiting for Thomas. As part of the approval, Thomas Duncan, rapporteur of the regional conference, who will refer to some of the aspects in the proposal and the structure thereof. Thomas, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Esteemed delegates, today we sent out the draft report, which consists of initially what we approved on Wednesday, the officials, and today it's the entire report, which is summaries from the head of state of Brazil, as well as Xu Dongyu, Director General, and other representatives who took part in the conference. It includes the topics that were discussed by the ministers through the 2 days of plenary. With regard to what Colombia requested, which is inclusion of the ARCA, the note has been taken, all of the opinions expressed in this room. In the spirit of equilibrium and established practices, I propose that the report remain as drafted, as is, and that Colombia be recognized elsewhere. This focus recognizes the interventions by all the different member nations and also preserves the consensus reflected in the draft of the report, which was sent out via email. Given such, I submit this report of the conference for approval in block. Madam Chairman, the floor is yours. Thank you, Mr. Rapporteur. Delegates, we have the final draft report, which consists of 4 parts: introductory items, policy and regulation, program and budget matters, and finally, other matters. Considering the fact that the draft report was approved in part on Wednesday with the officials meetings, and then was submitted to all the ministers, and it incorporates all of the summaries of the chairman and all of our deliberations and discussions. It has been consolidated with the valuable support of the rapporteur and the drafting committee. I suggest that this report be adopted in full by broad agreement. Are there any objections to this report? As I see no objections, the entire report is passed for the 39th Regional Conference for Latin America, of the FAO for the Latin America and the Caribbean. I thank you, my dear colleague, Thomas Duncan, rapporteur, all of the members of the drafting committee who supported him, all of the delegates of the member nations, all of the official observers and spokesperson for NGO participants. Thank you for your comments that have been included and enriched the report. I thus believe this has been an intense job. It's been a lot of work and a show of agreements that shows the richness and the potential of our region for the world as we face these difficult moments. Congratulations to all. I thank you all. We are now going to close the regional conference. There were 5 days of debates, dialogues, solutions, negotiations, connections, agreements, good food. I mean, I love the food. And to begin this session and to reflect on these achievements, I would like to give the floor to Guyana, which is online, correct? As the chairman of the last regional conference of the FAO. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours. Please do remember to turn on your camera.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. As we bring this important conference of the FAO for Latin America and the Caribbean to a close, allow me to express my sincere appreciation to all delegation partners and members of the FAO Secretariat for their valuable contribution and unwavering commitment throughout our deliberation. Over the past days, we have engaged in meaningful dialogue on critical issues facing our region's agricultural and food system, from the impacts of climate change and global market volatility to the urgent need to strengthen food security, improve rural livelihood, and support innovations in agriculture. Our discussion have reflected both the challenges we face and the opportunities before us. Latin America and the Caribbean remain a region of tremendous agricultural potential. Yet, realizing this potential requires strengthening collaboration, investment in science and technology, and policies that empower farmers, fishers, and rural communities. Our shared goal must continue to be the transformation of our agri-food systems into ones that are resilient, inclusive, sustainable, and capable of ensuring food and nutrition security for all. As Minister of Agriculture of Guyana, and having had the honor of serving as chairman of LARC, I wish to convey my deep appreciation for the spirit of cooperation and partnership that has characterized our engagements. This constructive exchange and decision made here will undoubtedly contribute to advancing the FAO's vision of better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life for present and future generations. Guyana remains committed to working with all our regional and international partners to promote sustainable agricultural development, enhance food production, and strengthen resilience across our food system. As we depart, let us carry forward not only the outcomes of this conference, but also renew a determination to translate our commitment into tangible action that benefit the people of our region. I thank you once again for your dedication and collaboration, and I wish all delegations safe travels and continued success in the important work ahead. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you so very much, Minister. Ahora tengo el honor y la alegría de
It is now my honor and joy to give the floor to the Vice Minister of Agrarian Development of Brazil, Ms. Fernanda Machiavelli, who will be speaking on behalf of the Brazilian government. Fernanda, the floor is yours. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of the 39th Regional Conference, FAO Conference for Latin America and the Caribbean, I would like to begin by expressing our deepest appreciation and thanks to all who made this important conference possible. Firstly, I recognize and thank the extraordinary efforts of the FAO teams who once again have shown their ability to share knowledge, experiences, and collective efforts on behalf of or for transformation of our agri-food systems. I also recognize the hard work of all of the ministers and delegates who worked over these last 5 days to debate and discuss the topics of the conference, and who will be leaving here even more committed to combating hunger and overcoming food insecurity. I would also like to thank the teams of the Brazilian ministries who took part in organization of this conference. Particularly, I would like to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who our host, who have welcomed us so warmly over these last few days. Also to the ministers who had the honor and who also worked so hard to co-preside this conference with the FAO, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Food and Livestock, and also the Ministry of Agrarian Development and Family Agriculture, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Social Development, and the Ministry of Health as well. I would also like to especially thank the Special Consultancy of International Affairs for the Ministry of Agrarian Development and Family Agriculture, whose team has worked extensively and wonderfully for the participation of our ministry in this event that is so important. To all of you, our deepest thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, agri-food systems today are facing a situation that is very comparable to the energy transition many decades ago, and now is happening in greater or lesser intensity throughout all parts of the world. There is evidence that a transition of comparable magnitude is already underway, and that in the ways we produce and consume food that sustain us and nourish us. We're moving from a chemical-based food system to a biological-based system, using science that respects knowledge, traditional knowledge, and ideas, that combines production of food, livestock, forestry, reforestation, recoveration of degraded areas, with diversified food, healthy food that we produce that reach the tables of all the families throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. This is excellent news for all of us. Nevertheless, this transition needs to happen urgently so that we can face some of the biggest crises of now, the poverty, hunger and environmental degradation. There's unequal access to natural resources and to food, whether this is locally or between countries. The recent Mercosur-European Union agreement showed that it is possible to reach consensuses among a large number of countries who have visions and interests who are both convergent and not. But together, there's a greater purpose for cooperation, for exchange, and for peaceful conviviality among nations. We believe that Latin America and Caribbean can become, in the next decades, a worldwide reference for agricultural transition and agroforestry progress. We think this is possible through working with these large, what we have in terms of knowledge and practice that we have brought together, both traditional knowledge and scientific knowledge, and thanks to this regional tradition that is highly anchored in Pacific conflict resolution, through respectful dialogue among different actors, that we will be able to achieve this. And through this cooperation, South-South cooperation, we will be able to achieve this. This is cooperation where we can accelerate and implement solutions that are environmentally sustainable, socially inclusive, and economically viable. Ladies and gentlemen, family farmers produce approximately 80% of the foods consumed worldwide, even though they occupy a small amount of agricultural lands. Agriculture is naturally biodiverse. In Brazil, for example, the small farmers produce over 400 types of different foods. A lot of them are purchased through our national program for school foods or school meals. And a lot of you had the opportunity to become familiar with these foods during the lunch on the first day of this conference. At the same time, we also know that over 80% of the people in extreme poverty in the world live in rural areas. This reality reinforces the importance of public policies that support family agriculture, productive inclusion, and strengthening of local food systems. In our region, we also have a long tradition of collectively constructing or designing public policies for rural areas. Among these initiatives, we can reference the special meeting for family agriculture in Mercosur, also called REAF, which was established in Lula's first mandate over 20 years ago. Working collectively has also been seen in the Brazil FAO cooperation program in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is now 20 years old. Over the last 20 years, and other initiatives for family agriculture, access to land, food supply policies, school food programs, food security, urban food security programs, and agricultural research, as well as South-South cooperation, has exploded. These due to innovative public policies throughout the region, and that shows the great potential of international cooperation based on mutual learning. I would also like to thank all of the countries and people throughout the region who took part in this 39th Regional FAO Conference have shown that they continuously and permanently are focused and invested in dialogue. Dialogue is the essential value for Latin America and the Caribbean so that we can ensure an area of cooperation, peace, and mutual learning. And it's through this type of dialogue that we can work together and make progress combating hunger, poverty, and make progress with just transformation, sustainable transformation, including the World Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. We are looking for just and sustainable transformation of our food system. This is our commitment today, and this is the commitment that should continue to guide us for the coming years. We hope for a Latin America and Caribbean free of hunger, democratic, equal, and prosperous. This is what we hope for our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Minister, I want to give the floor to the regional representative of the FAO that will make the last declaration of the conference. Deputy Director, you have the floor. Thank you, Madam Ambassador, Excellencies, Ministers, distinguished delegates. Chair, by concluding the 39th period of the sessions of the Regional Conference of the FAO for Latin America and the Caribbean, I'd like to express on behalf of the Director General and the entire organization our sincerest gratitude for the commitment, the high technical level, and the constructive spirit that has characterized these days of discussions and joint work. We thank the government of the Federative Government of Brazil for its leadership, its hospitality, and the impeccable organization of this conference. We would also like to express our gratitude to all the national institutions involved, as well as the high authorities that have accompanied us, reaffirming their commitment in the eradication of hunger, poverty, and sustainable development. Throughout these days, we've had direct and strategic discussions on the challenges and opportunities of our region. We have examined the advances achieved, but also the persistent gaps, food insecurity, malnutrition in all its forms, the growing vulnerability on climate change, pressures on water, soils, forests, the importance of promoting public and private investment, and the urgency of accelerating the transformation of our agri-food systems. And key messages result from this exchange. The region is called to double its efforts to eradicate hunger, fully taking advantage of its great productive capacity and its agri-food potential. The transformation of agri-food systems requires to support ourselves on science, innovation, and sound political policies that are integrated and based on evidence. Climate evidence, sustainable natural resources, and the focus on One Health are fundamental pillars to strengthen food security and nutritional security. The mobilization of investments is essential to move forward with this agenda, which requires us to close financing gaps and to strengthen strategic alliances. With challenges of natural nature, South-South cooperation, global cooperation, and multilateralism continue to be key instruments to advance in a solidary and effective way. This conference has fully complied with its mandate. I want to thank the co-chairs, the vice-chairs, the rapporteur, and the drafting committee for its dedication and rigorousness. I also extend my recognition to the technical teams, cooperators, and the interpreters that have made the effective development of this conference possible. My recognition also to the civil society organizations, to the private sector, academic and scientific institutions, and to parliamentary fronts against hunger. Your participation strengthens the inclusive and multi-stakeholder character of this regional conference. Today we have a report adopted by consensus that shows the regional priorities for the next biennium and guides the work of the FAO in Latin America and the Caribbean. The participation that has been reached has been especially significant in our conference. We had a total of 512 attendants of 32 member nations, including a head of state, 42 ministers, vice ministers, and permanent secretaries, 22 ambassadors, 6 members in their position as observers, 24 representatives of organizations of the United Nations and intergovernment organizations, 14 civil society organizations, 6 representatives from parliamentary, from the private sector, 6 scientific and academic organizations. Also, over 7,000 individuals followed the debates through our digital platforms and social media, which shows the vast interest and relevance of this agenda in the region. Allow me to reiterate the FAO's commitment. We will continue to work with the member nations in the implementation of the priorities defined here, which are to strengthen food security and nutritional security, the promotion of policies based on evidence, the mobilization of investments, to promote technical digital security, fight these crises, and promote agri-food systems that are more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. We say goodbye, we say farewell from this conference with a clear route, with renewed consensus, and with a shared responsibility. The transformation that we have discussed here must now turn into concrete actions in every territory of our countries. I wish you safe travels back to your countries, and may you implement everything that has been agreed here. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias por sus palabras.
Thank you very much for your words. And to close, I also want to express my gratitude as co-chair in this regional conference. I want to start by thanking the Federative Presidency of the Republic of Brazil and His Excellency President Lula da Silva for his support and for his permanent support to this regional conference of the FAO. I also want to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil for its constant support. I want to thank the team of the Ministry of Agricultural Development and the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock that very actively and professionally has become involved in the preparation and the organization of this regional conference, as well as the other ministries of the government of Brazil. I'd like to thank the team of the Secretariat of the conference, and very especially the representative of the FAO for Latin America and the Caribbean, Mr. René. We welcome you to this first regional conference that you've participated in. Mr. Pablo Ransuk, Secretary of the Regional Conference, Mrs. Maria Takagi, leader of the regional program of the FAO, the representative of the FAO in Brazil, Mr. Jorge Mesa, for your close support to the forum has been fundamental, and the entire team of the FAO for your accompaniment throughout the planning of this regional conference. I'd like to very especially thank the whole team that has supported us in the room, the photographers, the interpreters, the people that have brought the pão de queijo, water, coffee. Without all of your support, none of this would have been possible. So thank you. The official observers, spokespersons of the NGOs that have accompanied us, for their contributions, their comments that have enriched our discussions throughout the entire conference. Your voices have been heard, very well heard. The rapporteur, dear friend, Minister Duncan, for your arduous and successful work in the preparation and the approval of the report. And to all the members of the drafting committee that have provided their support for your very hard work, to the government of El Salvador for your candidacy, and to be the venue for the next regional conference. Count on us to provide our support for this event. To the members of the delegations of the member nations, thank you very much. Many of them are my peers and similar responsibilities in your different countries. Thank you for being here with us, for visiting this city that I think is so beautiful. I hope that you've also liked it. And me personally, I'd like to thank the team that is in Rome now, listening and sending me little pictures all the time. And well, all of you, thank you very much. I hope that you've enjoyed your stay. And well, having fully complied with all the activities and the mandate that was entrusted to us, I formally declare the 39th period of sessions of the conference concluded.
Invito al almuerzo.
I now invite you to lunch. The buses for the field visits will be leaving at 3, so thank you very much, dear friends.